Conan O'Brien has been taking his humor all over the holiest places in Israel this week, all for a TBS special for his show called Conan Without Borders. And our own Jordana Miller got an exclusive interview with the funny man right next to the Western Wall and a bromance with Crystal Meth Kingpin and Steve Carell. And we have Carmit Levite here. So we have a lot going on in culture. Yes. But first, let's talk with Jordana. First of all, how cool is this? You and I pretty much grew up together, and here we are working together, and like it was such a great team effort. You had to pretty much stake out Conan O'Brien yesterday.
Oh my God, it was a 7-hour stakeout. And let me tell you, I used every contact from LA to New York to Jerusalem to track him in the old city. It was 7 hours. Finally, to the chagrin of his production team and the people at Aisha Torah, we got onto the roof literally minutes before he arrived with just a fraction of his team, and that's where I got to talk to him.
And like, there's a backstory here, because we were on the phone, and you're like, I am a Conan person, I wonder if he'll remember me, and like you got like right into it.
Let me just say, I'm such a hard news reporter, but I've always had a soft spot for Conan O'Brien, going back to the days I worked at CNN, and I met him in New York at Sarah Beth's, a very famous breakfast place. Yes. My best friend Raina and I were there. We're like, we work for CNN, we love you, we're so sad Andy just left. This was like 13 years ago. He was such a man. She gave us his assistant's number. We got tickets. We went to the show. We went backstage. Then, of course, our boss killed the idea of doing a story on him. And I was like, you guys are so wrong. This guy's huge. Anyway, so I retold the story. And I'm like, when I saw him, I'm like, Conan, we've been waiting for you for 7 hours. We met in New York. And he's like, we did? He's like, did we have a one-night stand?
If only you could have said yes. All right, now, you got an exclusive at the end of the day, and we have a clip.
Yeah, let's
look at it.
Feel like anything here, like spiritually?
Do I feel anything spiritually? That's a very good question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Okay. Things come to me later in the day. Right. So I'll probably have a great spiritual feeling late afternoon, early evening.
Okay.
It's usually after I eat. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. But I definitely will. It's very powerful to be here. You cannot see these sights and not feel some sort of a spiritual buzz.
You're always making fun of the fact that you're Catholic.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
You know,
yeah. I'm so glad we don't have a quarter section here. There's a Christian one, but you know that they're not letting the Irish Catholics in, because we ruin everything.
Not getting the world's most liberal Jewish tour, and I want you to know that there's a whole Jewish world beyond these lovely people.
Okay.
And in honor of that, I would love to give you my Kippa, which represents liberal Judaism.
Okay.
To wear it.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll see about that. I'm taking in all views. I'm taking in all views. It's the best that I can. You know? Yeah.
All right. Great.
But I also have this. I have this really cool. I think this represents Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom.
You had so much fun, and in that clip is Susan Silverman, who's Sarah Silverman's sister, who is a friend of yours, and her husband's coming on tomorrow. But
that's right.
Even giving him the Kippa, and she's a rabbi.
That's right. Now, Sarah Silverman, obviously one of the best comedians in America, good friends with Conan. Susan showed up to say, hey, you know, I'm a liberal Jew, and this is a kippa, a yarmulke that we wear, and just to let Conan know that he was getting a tour only really by the Orthodox. And of course, there's a big fight going on about, you know, liberal Jews having a spot to pray at the Western Wall, Judaism's holiest site. A little of it went over Conan's head, but he was very gracious. You know,
it's hard to go over his head because he's so tall.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Just the height difference is hilarious.
And I have to say, you know, I also asked him, you know, what do you love about Israelis? And he said, you know, they are so funny, so quick to improvise. You know, this is why they're some of the best comedians in the world. He's just having a blast. And, you know, he went to go meet the Prime Minister, and everyone's kind of having fun with it.
It's really amazing. I'm sure the special is going to be, you know, something to talk about. And he went to Bethlehem. I'm sure there's like some funny stuff going on there, too. Anyway, so congrats. I know you waited in the heat all day. And I know you're probably like, oh, I wish I would have seen him.
No, I'm dying out to see it. And you know, it'll be interesting to see how Jared Kushner will, you know, because that's why he came, right?
Yeah,
to be Jared Kushner's like response. And
I'm sorry for this girl talk. She and I go way back. We share a best friend. My closest friend from high school is her closest friend from college. How crazy is this?
And I'm in a magical circle here.
Here you are. You're joining. You're joining.
Let's do a shout out.
Okay, now let's like transition to
so I think
smoking weed. I think only in Israel can we talk about this. Well, but anyway, now it's very acceptable. combustible according to Netflix.
Yes, it is, and they're selling a unique strain, and each and every marijuana strain is going to be called by one of the Netflix shows, like Orange is the New Black, and Lady Dynamite, and BoJack Horseman, which is going to be a really weird one. And you can buy them in a pop-up shop in Los Angeles, 7828 Santa Monica Boulevard.
We know
I knew you girls know what that is. Easter Presents.
Not when we were growing up.
No, but anyway, all this is to promote Disjointed, a new show with Kathy Bates, where she plays a woman who opens a dispensary store, and she has her bud tenders, and they roam around. It's actually getting a little bland reviews.
Oh, really?
Because it's surprising.
That's because they're all smoking weed.
That's right.
Like, they have the energy.
Well, because you know how all these big showrunners like Chuck Lorre, who is the showrunner of this show, Big Bang Theory, 2.5 Men, they're giving him so much leeway to do whatever they want in their shows. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but Kathy Bates, she's incredible, but apparently it's not as great. Even David Jeroboam, who wrote on The Daily Show, speaking of, we both love all the comedy night shows, Jon Stewart, we both want his children. But,
unfortunately, he already has.
He's done. He's done. But, so even the cannabist.com didn't give it a great review, so that's how you know.
They're not giving it a thumbs up. All right, now let's talk about the Holy Kova Temple.
The Kova Temple.
Which I came in, I'm like, am I supposed to know what this is?
Yes, and you do know what it is. I'm sure we'll have pictures of it in a second. The Kova Temple is a Zionistic symbol. It's been that forever. And since it's been around, it's actually been ridiculed. That Kova Temple means idiot hat, which is it's a bucket hat.
Okay.
And you kind of look like an idiot when you wear it.
Like here, like early Zionism,
and
right?
that is actually Sherlock. It's a characteristic that represents Israel, and it has the head on. Anyway, the point is that it is actually, we've been making fun of this hat since the 1930s, really, and now it's going to be an item in the annual fashion exhibit in MoMA, New York City. So look who's laughing last. There are going to be 111 cross-cultural items like, the white T-shirt from Hanes, or Levi's 501, or the little black dress, Chanel's black dress.
That age us because they're things that we wore when they were originally in style.
Right, but it just shows they stand time. That's the whole thing. And there's going to be a hijab there. There's going to be a kafia next to a yarmulke. And the idea is what is modern fashion? Because you answer the question. You can wear anything that's old-fashioned. You make it look good.
He just looks like a grandpa.
Well, that's the thing. The hat was originally designed by Shachar Segal, who is a restaurateur and an advertising exec, and they were used by the Palmach, which was the pre-Israel Defense Organization, which is now part of the IDF, and then it turned into be like a kibbutz thing. Basically, it's a cheap hat that was actually designed by Turkey, a little bit of Japan, and it's very cheap, and you can, like, when the sun is down, you just fold it up and put it in your pocket.
Into your luggage.
But it makes you look not great, and it's not the best sunblock.
It's still a cultural icon, and they didn't have the big brand. Like, look at this.
It is.
And like, that's what this guy.
But that's the thing. But the last thing I'll say about it is that it's come back to fashion by the store called Ata, Aregim Totzeret Artzeinu, Fabrics of the Land. So they're bringing out the 1930s of Israel back into fashion and into MoMA.
I wish we had more time, but this one just went so fast. We just talked for like 10 minutes, so we're gonna have to do the bromance later.
Conan a temple hat.
You know what?
That'd be great. Let's try to get it to him.
He's here one more day.
He's here one more day. Although
one more day.
His production people are
they don't like you. They don't like you anymore.
I burned my bridges.
But he still remembers the one-night stand.
That never happened.
All right, girls. I'm getting dinged by our producer. He rings the bell when we're like too much feminine energy, like ding, ding, ding. All right.